Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So, I have another interview today. I have the wonderful Katie Sheehan with me. So she is a DJ on Spin Southwest, and wow, the stories she has to tell are amazing. I just want to put in, there is a slight trigger warning here of mentions of rape, miscarriage and suicide, but they all turn out well in the end, I suppose, as well as they can be. But really interesting conversation, really great for anyone who struggles with mental health, about sharing your story and talking and getting that out there. And I think you will learn a lot from this episode, so hope you guys all enjoy. Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. Today I'm joined by Katie Sheehan. So she is a DJ on Spin Southwest. So I'm going to let Katie introduce herself to you guys. Welcome to the podcast. How are you, Katie?
Thanks so much. I'm good. So as you were just saying, I am a DJ. I am a DJ and radio presenter at Spin Southwest, and I have spoke to you before, Christine. So it's lovely to catch up with you again.
Yeah, no, it's great to have a chat like this. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, God, I see. I'm afraid now I'll take off on an absolute tangent. So do
Oh, I
stop
love
me.
this. Go for it.
So I always start when someone asks me that question, with the answer of, I just feel like I'm a normal person. I obviously am now a radio presenter, but I'm also a mom, a sister, a daughter. I feel like I came from very humble backgrounds, and yeah, I just came to become a radio presenter through talking about my own life experiences. And from doing that, I reached a different community. And I feel like from being honest and relatable about my life experiences, it kind of sent me down the pathway to being a radio presenter.
Yeah. So you've had like a lot of, I suppose, challenges maybe in your life. Is that the best way of describing it? Can you explain that a little bit more for anyone who's listening who may not be familiar with your backstory?
Yeah, of course. I love the way you said that, challenges. Yeah, it like they are. So like I feel like everyone in life has massive life challenges and traumas from their past. And there's just some people, I suppose, that come to a place and stage in their life where they share it. And for me, my troubles started really young. So I was 13 and I was raped. I then moved on through my teenage years, which I found were very difficult because I was struggling with that, and not having talked about it uh, really created some behaviors, anxiety, depression within me. And when you're that young, you don't know how it affects you and how it affects how you operate as a person. So yeah, so from there I struggled throughout my teenage years, and then moved forward to later in life with so many, like I'm definitely going to forget some, Christine, but we can touch back. But from having challenges, getting pregnant, having to go through the treatment to get pregnant, and later in life finding out I had gynecologists or gynae issues, um, polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, which
Oh,
later led in life, yeah, which later led in life to a condition called PMDD. And it's not known in Ireland as well as it should be. And it's absolutely the most horrific thing to have. And that unfortunately led me to have a suicide attempt in 2017. That is me just sugarcoating over some of the traumas and challenges I've faced. But in 2017, I decided to embark on I suppose, a self-learning journey about myself and why I felt certain things in certain ways, why I had certain behaviors. And yeah, through talk therapy, years of it, once a week, absolutely changed my whole life and helped me heal and learn so much. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people have these past challenges and traumatic things in their life. But unfortunately, I got hit with a fair amount of them. Feel free to jump into
Yeah.
any of them. I'm not like I probably have forgotten half of them, but that's just brushing over some.
Yeah, but I suppose the thing about it is you said you started talking about these things, and I suppose you probably know that notice yourself in Ireland. There's a lot of let's not talk about that.
For
How
sure. It's massive.
how were you received when you started bringing up things like, say, like even talking about being raped, talking about like struggles with mental health and all? Like, did people like kind of push against you? Obviously, if you're in therapy, they're going to be there to help you. But if you're talking out in the public forum, like, what were your like family or friends like? What were they thinking about for that?
Yeah, do you know what? That is an amazing question. I actually have never been asked that.
Mm.
So it there's both sides. Okay. And I remember when I first started this, and I have to say it gets easier as you move on. So I will go back a little to when I started to talk about these things. When I started learning about these things, I am one of those obsessive people. So if I have an interest in something and it really it lights a fire in me, like there's no pulling me away from it. And I feel like when I went into therapy and really learned what therapy did for you as a person, I became obsessed with it and I learned it and I lived it. And I remember it was so silly what started this whole journey, but I remember my grandmother being in hospital and she just had a horrible experience. And I remember really like getting annoyed over it. And I stood up and I spoke publicly for her on her behalf. She was literally 86 and she died a couple of weeks after. But from that moment, when I spoke out, something happened inside me. And I was like, I felt a power, if that's the right
Yeah.
word. And from there, I was like, you know what? I am going to talk about my experiences and learnings. And that's when the community radio came in. So I decided to go to community radio, ask, can you teach me? I want to have my own show. I want a platform of some shape or form. And I went into community radio, Limerick City Community Radio, and they're lovely in there and they taught me everything. And then I don't know what happened. I fed off that piece of power for speaking up for my grandmother. And I went into helping charities. And then it just led to meeting this woman one time that spoke so openly about suicide prevention and rape. She was raped as a child, and I got inspired by her. And that was a very long-winded answer, but the
Mm.
reason I'm giving you the background because this woman was the reason I did what I did. Her name was Leona O'Callaghan in Limerick. She inspired me, and they talk about the domino effect of someone actually impacting you with their story, and then it leads on to you speaking out. So when I did decide to finally make a documentary on community radio and talk about all those hard things, it was hard. I had people in my village that would have looked and was like, why? Why is she talking about that? She's looking for attention. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And then you had my family, luckily, were very supportive. And, it's not easy. Like I had a husband at the time, and, you know, I had to think about how it felt for him, me speaking out about these things, even though I'm speaking my truth and my story. But I did have the people that talked and chitter chattered about how, oh, she's looking for attention. Why else would you tell your story? But then, on the small little audience that I had, there was a handful of people that reached out to me on social media, and they said they were blown away by my honesty. And I remember one woman saying that she took so much from my story, that she had went to a doctor, she had got diagnosed with something similar in the gynae area. Another woman reached out and said that she had been holding in that she was raped for years, for years. And she said, I have just sat down and told my husband what has happened to me. And she said it was like, even right now, I can feel the
Yeah.
lump in my throat. So that power, Christine, there's no other feeling like it. So that handful of people that reached out to me and told me that my story had affected them. And then I had this big, massive group on the other side that were calling me an attention seeker. So from there, through talk therapy, I learned that the people that don't understand why you're speaking about these personal things are the people that haven't done the work on themselves to know why I would do something like that. So through the talk therapy and the handful of people that reached out to me, drove me further. And from then, I just absolutely kept going. And I mean, Christine, on my socials, like I used to be putting up live videos, and people always say to you, it's not about the likes. And I want to say and really say how important it is for people to hear me when I say it is not about the likes. It is not about the views. Because though my posts might have had one like on it, you can see there's still people viewing it.
Mm.
And those people that viewed it were some of the people that reached out, mightn't have liked it or interacted with it, but they still reached out privately and said, you absolutely have inspired and impacted me to make change. So you will always have your mixed bag, but like the message here would be to absolutely go with your gut and make sure you're ready to make that step and speak out so openly, and make sure you've done the healing and you're strong enough to do that. So yeah, it's crazy to even talk about it. That was an amazing question.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying as well. Like people, especially with those kind of topics, I hate saying it, they're like taboo or whatever.
Mm.
Or like, if you like a video of you talking about some of the things you've covered, like it's almost like admitting, so they mightn't be liking it, but they could be in
That's
your
it.
DMs like that. And they're the people like, even if they're in a DM sending you a message, like that's a big step for them.
It was massive. And now, like, as we moved on, I did the talk, I openly spoke, and then I moved on to suicide prevention. And that, like, you talk about taboo, like that's a tough one to talk about.
Mm.
And I joined a charity group here in Limerick called the Haven Hub. They're a suicide prevention group. And on the weekends, they are there for people that might be in distress, and that you can they can go to them and sit down, have a cup of tea, and talk to these trained people. And I got trained in it and everything. And I started doing interviews with parents that had been affected massively uh, with their children. They might have lost their children through suicide. They might have been going through a horrific stage of their kids making several attempts. And I was covering these really sensitive topics, subjects. And I had people coming on opening up, and little by little you could see it getting a little bit bigger. And that's how it just snowballs, and that's how you make an impact. And to be honest, I fed off that. There was some sort of healing in that for me. I hadn't spoke out about my rape. I had locked myself away. I had dealt with depression and anxiety, and I was afraid to talk out, and there was healing and power in me speaking out. And eventually, after a while, that fear of what people think went away. Like, I had people making up emails, Christine, at 5 in the morning and sending me emails saying, like, who do you think you are? Attention seeker, what are you doing?
I
And you know
imagine they
what?
fell asleep beside their cheesy chips after doing that.
And that's it. And like, you know what? I kind of got to a stage where I was like, okay, do you know what? I know why I'm doing this. And that's all that matters, is what I feel when I do it and how I'm impacting. And it doesn't matter if you're not reaching thousands, millions, like it doesn't matter. Like the feeling of reaching 10 women, 10 men, is all that matters. And then your confidence just grows after.
But the thing as well, when you is like, when you're in those scenarios, because they're not spoken about, it's very easy to go, feel like you're alone in it. And
It's crazy.
bringing that, like you bringing attention to it, or someone responding to you, they now know they're not alone, and
And
that could be the difference between, like, literally life or death. Like,
I love that because that's the truth. It is the truth. Like I don't know if you've ever dealt with it, but I remember when I was going through a bad spell. Um, oh God, I felt like I was the only one in the world. And again, this brings it back. Let's go back to social media. So like I always try to be honest. And do you know what? In the last couple of months, I've been so busy that I probably haven't done as many videos and talks like I used to. But like I used to do reels. If you go back along my Instagram reels way, way back, you will see reels of me talking about CF and I'm crying in them. You will see me talking about mental health. Because people look on social media and people share their best bits on social. And that's what it's there for. And yes, people do. But then you go down the rabbit hole of sitting there sad, looking at social media, thinking, oh my God, I am so alone in this. I'm the only person. Why is all my friends' lives perfect? Why is this person's someone from school 20 years ago? Look at their life.
yeah,
And by people talking out and being so honest and open and saying, you know what? I had a shit day. Sorry, I don't even know if I can curse on
oh,
this.
fire away. I'm okay with cursing.
But like I had a shit day. I felt crap today. I had 10 things to do and I only got two done. Um, there is someone watching that has had a shit day, had 20 things to do and got none done. And in that moment, you're going to make someone feel so much better. And I really do. I'd love for social media to go to that place where people are comfortable enough to feel like they can talk about both sides, the happy
Yeah,
days and the bad days. Like I had an amazing weekend last weekend. I went to Belfast and it was
I love that.
amazing. And it was amazing. And oh God, I shared all my great pictures, everything. And then Monday, uh, I was overwhelmed. I had things to catch up on. I'm a mom of two. My son has cystic fibrosis. I have a stroppy teenager. She'll kill me if she listens to this, but actually, who am I kidding? She's a teenager. She's not going to listen to this. But yeah, I had a shit day Monday, and I had to get up Tuesday and go to the gym and pick myself back up and then catch up with the million things I have to do in the week. Um, so though my pictures are up there from the weekend, no one knows I had the shit day Monday and had to pick myself back up Tuesday. So like there is so many perks to being so open and talking about these things.
Yeah. I think as well there is a lot more of that on social media now, and I think people appreciate seeing it now. It does also have people going, oh, this is bad, it's for
Yeah,
the sympathy. But I do think it's better to have that realness, because like you said, like, you can have a fantastic weekend and Monday's shite. We hide, like, say for instance, you might have time to put it on social media, but like if you hide that away, you're putting this picture perfect life all the time, but you're lying to yourself as well a little bit.
yeah, 100%. And I suppose it goes for what you stand for. And even sitting here right now, I'm like, do you know what? After this, I'm going on Instagram and I'm going to do a quick video and talk about these things again. Because life has become so busy that it's hard to go on. And I still get days, I promise you that, where I have my finger on the record button. And then I'm like, oh God, do you know, like what are people going to think? And you've a whole new following. Are people going to get what you're talking about? Um, and it is that feeling always creeps in, whether people will judge or not. Um, and you do have to be careful, because you have to mind yourself, because you do have to worry about the backlash. And I just feel like I've grown to a place now where other people's words don't bother me. Other people's opinions of me are exactly that, their opinion. And the people that are closest to me and know me the best know what I'm about and why I do what I do. So if they don't, well, then you're not that close to me and you don't know me that well to judge me or have an opinion of me.
The thing isn't it, like opinions are like assholes. Everyone has them.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
So you're talking about like the gynecological things you have, like your PCOS and endometriosis and PMDD. So how hard was it to get a diagnosis of that? Because I know PCOS is becoming like a lot more well known. Endometriosis still seems to be it's somewhere coming in, but I don't think PMDD is. Most people
No,
probably wouldn't even know what that means.
no, and they really don't. They really don't. It's so, like, when I was a teenager, and then when I look back now I know as well that the rape at 13, and unfortunately that's how I lost my virginity, that had a massive impact on my womanly organs.
Mm.
And I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that. And later in life, I remember my teenage years, I had the worst. I did. I had the
Yeah.
PMS, I had the outbreaks of spots. Um I just had it all. And I remember, like, going to the doctor, getting checked, and they were like, oh, this will regulate. And then getting a little bit older, 16, 17, I had to go on the pill. The pill didn't suit me. And then I started trying things like the coil. And then I was like, oh no, it's the hormone in it. So like, anyone listening in today, like, really watch for what the hormones do to your body, because that's a teller. And then the real work started when I started to try to have a baby, and it just wasn't working for me. And I was like, why is this not working? Oh God, you get frustrated. And I'm sure there's loads of women out there that have went through this and still going through this. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go see someone and figure out this. So I remember starting with the GP. I remember saying, okay, I want to have a baby. I want to get pregnant. It's not working for me. And they referred me to a gynecologist. And then from there, they do the testing. So I remember it coming back that I had polycystic ovary syndrome. Now that would have been great to know at 14 and 15.
Yeah.
Now I know that they are diagnosing it much earlier now, which is great. But, like, I was finding this on in my 20s, and you to learn about it and, like, change your eating habits. And it all makes sense when I look back now, because like I was overweight. I literally ate my emotions, and the emotions were there because of the hormones. Um, Girl, I'll own that I had a beard. Like, it was just, yeah, it was horrific.
That's one of
And
the very common ones of PCOS, excessive hair
oh,
growth.
horrible. It
Yeah.
was literally like a hairy man. But yeah, so I went from being diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome. I remember them put me on a thing called Clomid. Clomid, I think that's the right word. And that was to help me get pregnant. And I did eventually then get pregnant. And on my second baby, trying to get pregnant, couldn't. And I went on then to find out that, obviously, off the back of PCOS, grew in endometriosis. And that's when the scarring, so, like, the damage and the scarring starts to build, starts to block things, stops your ovaries for or your ovaries operating correctly. And that was another
Intensive
hurdle.
pain as well.
Oh my God, the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pain. So yeah, so luckily enough, I was linked in with the gynae because of the polycystic ovary syndrome. And then we started battling that. And I think I remember having a keyhole surgery for that to get like a little bit of that cleared away. Um, I then fell pregnant after my daughter. And unfortunately, I miscarried at 4 months after getting pregnant. Yeah, see, that's something I forgot at the start. So, yeah, I had suffered a miscarriage as well. And I remember then thinking after that, I was like so deflated from trying, from diagnosis, from, uh, getting the keyhole surgery, trying all these medications and stuff to get pregnant. As I said, that was making me hormonal, upset, bloated, putting on weight from eating, the hair growth. It's endless. The pain it was just horrific. And it is. So any woman out there, I really do feel for you because an easy, it's not easy at all.
Yeah.
Uh, so from there, I kind of gave up on the pregnancies and the baby thing. I was just like, look, what will be, what's for me won't pass. And I ended up falling pregnant without help a year after the miscarriage. And that is when my beautiful son Michael came along. So he came along. The pregnancy was tough enough compared to my first. I had a lot of complications. I had so much fluid, like crazy amount of fluid. I was like, I honestly, my feet, I couldn't walk. The fluid was on the bottoms of my feet. And I had gained, I think, pregnant with my son, I reached 17, close to 17 stone. Um, and then when I had him, obviously, your listeners don't know, I've spoken about this before, but he has cystic fibrosis, a lifelong illness. And when I had him, I didn't know there was anything wrong until I gave birth to him. And when I gave birth to him, he turned blue about 3, 4 hours after giving birth to him beside me.
Yeah.
And he was rushed to Neo and later then transferred to Crumlin by ambulance. And when that happened, that's when all the testing started. And we were there for a good week. He was losing lots of weight. And he was, a week after that, was later diagnosed with the cystic fibrosis. So my hormonal and gynae issues didn't stop there. After Michael was diagnosed with this, I obviously fell into a dark place without realizing it. I went into autopilot. I always say it. I had to learn what this disease was, what I needed to do to care for him. You are honestly, when your son's first diagnosed with this, it's terrible. But when you Google it, there is a life expectancy with this. There's a lot of drugs on the daily to give him. And yeah, I just went into a pretty dark place, but not knowing at the time that hormones was having a massive play in me being in this dark place. And unfortunately, it just grew from there, from when Michael was born all the way up to, I'm trying to make out the years. So Michael was 2013. So for about 3 to 4 years after, I was in a really hard place. And I think on the third year, the fourth year, I started to really look back at the hormone side of things. So I was looking at the depression and I was thinking all this time, I was like, oh, I'm depressed. I must be going through the motions of my son being diagnosed. But when something clicked one day where I was like, wait a minute, this seems to be happening on the run up to my menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I started tracking and diarying the dates on when it was happening. And now this was nothing like I'd experienced before, Christine. Like if anyone's listening in and they want to know what the symptoms of PMDD, it started with a week before my period. And it was tears. It was the lowest of the low mood. Now we all know before a period where we want chocolate and we're we're low and we're cranky and we're
Don't bother
emotional.
us.
Yeah. But I noticed that it was next level. So like if you Google PMDD right now, it was, I'd like to use the word irrational
Yeah.
and annoyed, angry, upset, emotional. And after diarying for a while, I noticed that the week was pushing out to 2 weeks. And then it was, in the end, I was having 3 weeks of absolute hell. And then I got my period and I would be fine for a week.
So
And
literally
then
like
boom,
75% of your life.
was hell. Was honestly, it was hell. And unfortunately, if you look up PMDD, and I urge any woman that's relating to me talking right now to do it. Unfortunately, in the end, in 2017, then that's what led to my suicide attempt. I had got to a place where I could not live in my own mind anymore. I could not live in my own body. 3 weeks of the month living in this place where you couldn't think clearly, you couldn't feel happy, you couldn't operate. It was horrific. It was actually horrific. And I reached back out to my gynae and I went in, and my husband at the time came with me and sat down, and he explained his versions of what he was seeing. And I showed her what I was diarying. And in that moment, she was like, I don't know if you've ever heard of PMDD. And she said, Katie, I really, really feel that you have PMDD. So from there, I worked with her, and it turned to the decision of me at 32 having a full hysterectomy. I had my ovaries, my womb, I had everything, tubes removed at 32. So it's actually quite unheard of to have a woman have that done at 32. It's you're so young. You are so young. I was actually the first person in the UHL Limerick to have this operation done robotically. And it was it was a hard decision. I feel like I was born to be a mother, and I feel like I probably would have had more kids, but in that moment, honestly, I was like, take it all. It was my children that were here living, and my mind. So I was choosing my mind over my reproductive system
Yeah.
because I could not live the way I was living anymore. And yeah, I went on then to go and just have absolutely everything removed. And since then, um, I haven't felt like I have since that year. I obviously got catapulted into menopause. So menopause at 32 is so much fun,
I
but
can imagine. I'm 32 now. I'm like,
are you? Oh
yeah.
my goodness, not to be scaring you. But yeah, no, I got you get it's surgical menopause. So like obviously women normally have that little by little uh run up to a premenopausal and all the rest of it. I went in one operating door, came out the other, and I was flung in within the week. I had to start HRT, for my body and stuff. But like I am a couple of years on now since that surgery. I'm still on HRT, and you can physically see the change in me. Like I can show you pictures. I think they're on my Instagram, aren't they? Like I've been at the healthiest weight that I've ever been. I don't emotionally eat anymore. Um, the menopause isn't easy. I'm not going to say it is, but it's not the hell that I was living with PMDD. So I'm so sorry. That was a
No,
long-winded, like the hormone side of my story was a massive part of it.
again, this is a lot, and another thing that a lot of women struggle with, and I think definitely the conversation. Well, maybe it's just the space I'm in. I know a lot of nutritionists who like talk about that and how to deal with them, but PMDD is definitely something very still very quiet, and I think that like in a sense, like you were lucky that you had a female gynecologist
Mm-hmm.
because
Shout out to Dr. Casey in St. John's Hospital here in Limerick. She is amazing. And she was actually my gynecologist since I was younger. And she knows what she's talking about. She like this is massive in America. This is a little bit well more known in the UK, but it's not over here. Like I did pieces when I was on community radio about it to try bring awareness, because it's not. And you know what the sad thing is? I know that there's so many women out there that are absolutely in the pits of hell right now, and being diagnosed with depression, being diagnosed with anxiety, being diagnosed with like I had to go through all the motions when I actually wasn't any of them.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty positive person. I try to pull the positive out of
Yeah.
every bad situation. And I knew that it wasn't fitting. So if any woman is listening in today and you feel that you've been diagnosed with anything, depression, anxiety, bipolar, personality disorder, just like if it doesn't sit with you and if it doesn't feel right, please go get a second opinion. Google doctors, Google these things, read about them, educate yourself on them. Because I have to say, like, I am so far from the woman that I was. And when I look back, it's so sad that I had to live through so many years of torture
Yeah.
to get to where I am today, when you could have learned about this sooner.
I suppose the only, I suppose, silver lining to that is the fact that you do have your two kids, because is there any other treatment other than having to get the hysterectomy?
So there is a process, but I suppose I had been through so much of it.
Yeah.
So I was, I was dealing with the polycystic ovary syndrome, which some of the treatments are the same for endometriosis and the same for PMDD. So they will ask you to check what you're eating. It's massive. The exercise is massive. All these things. But I was so far gone.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when I had went to the depths of trying to leave this world, um, it was just I was gone too far. But there is different treatments for all of this. It doesn't have to be my end, but like that is unfortunately that's the end. When you have to make that decision, um, that's what you have to do. But yeah, it honestly, if anyone's listening in that has any doubts in their mind that they are living some sort of close life to what I'm describing, research PMDD. Like research its symptoms, and then research doctors that understand it. Because
Yeah.
honestly, the night I went into hospital, on that night in question, I remember I had actually, I apologize. I was actually diagnosed just before this had happened, with PMDD. And I remember this now because I remember going to the hospital and I remember a doctor, no, a nurse saying to my friend who was saying she has PMDD, trying to explain to her my background. And the nurse was like, "What is PMDD?" Like, it's not known. No one knows. Well, okay, that's a bold statement. People do know, but not a lot know, not enough know about
Yeah, well,
this.
like even saying that, like, you said about, you went in and like with PCOS and they were like, oh, well, go on the pill, that'll sort your issue. And that's
Mhm.
still being given as a fix for the likes of PCOS and endometriosis when it's not. It's actually turning off your hormones.
Yeah,
So if that's still happening today, it was really, really common when we would have been in our teens. If it's still happening today, the fact that people don't know what PMDD is not surprising,
yeah, no, it is. It like there has to be stepping stones. So, if you're being trialed on the pill, it can't be a forever fix.
No.
And diarying, diarying, that's not even a word, but writing things down and watching, how things are working for you is massive. And I wish I learned that sooner. Really, really. looking at the symptoms, looking how the medication that you're being put on is working for you. If it's not working, come off it, see what the next option is. And I wish I did that sooner because I could have got through the process quicker.
Mm.
Uh, I feel like most of my life was this battle. And, I could have got it done quicker. I could have been living this life
Yeah.
sooner, if that makes sense.
How did it feel when you came to the decision you were going to have the full hysterectomy?
It was hard. It was hard, but the other side of it, I remember sitting down with my husband at the time, and I remember saying, like, is this what we want? Now, I have to say, right, the only thing that helped a lot with this decision was one, my mind. So, like, if you have to choose your mind over having another baby, it's an easy one. But in my situation, I just had a son who was diagnosed with a lifelong illness. And this illness is genetic. So it means when two matching genetics come together, um, we have that possibility to make a child with cystic fibrosis. So I feel like it was an easy decision to make at the time because I didn't want to chance having another baby in case I had and there's not, like, I know loads of families in the CF community that have 2 and 3 kids with cystic fibrosis. But for me and my family, I felt like I had a girl, I had a boy, I was dealing with these hormone issues, and I thought, you know what, this is it. Let's go. I've been dealing with this since I was a teenager. Um, so as weird as it sounds, it was a pretty easy decision in the moment. But
Yeah.
remember, with that decision, you have to get the supports and the healing as well. Like only, I think it was 3, 4 months ago, I was holding a baby, and this had never happened to me. So we're years on now, and I've always been sure and happy with my decision. And a couple of months back, I was holding a baby, and I got really emotional. And like that, in a moment's notice, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to do this again." And in realization, I'm not in the position to do that. But I was just so, like, you need to have the supports and the healing as well. That's massive. And before you do it and after you do it. But yeah, it wasn't easy, but look, it wasn't hard.
Yeah, I get you. It kind of at the point like it was causing you that much anguish for a child you may never have as
Yeah,
well.
and that's it. And that was it for me too. I was like, I don't know if I'll ever even go again. And look, I'm always again about the positive. If you look at just the things I've touched on there in my story, and Christine, they're honestly just the hot topics. There's so much more. It's like an onion with me. Like you could be peeling for days. But I always like to switch it to the now
Yeah.
of the positive side of, from me reaching out and getting support and help, me being just so obsessive over finding out what was going on with me. Like I am living the best life I've ever lived. And what I mean by the best life, it's nothing got to do with my career. It's nothing got to do with how I look. It's everything got to do with how I feel as a person and how I feel about myself, what I've learned. Like my favorite thing to do in this world is to learn something new. It is to grow in some shape or form. And from that child that was taken advantage of, and then that teenager that was lost and didn't know who she was or where she belonged, and again taken advantage of, to the woman that felt useless because I couldn't conceive a baby like everyone else, then to be able to conceive and lose one, and then to have a son who has a lifelong illness, and then to have all of her womanly organs taken away from her. Let me tell you, um, you can come out better than you've ever been from any traumatic experience. And I think that's why I've shared them, because if I share them, I could give the gift to another woman in my position to get that help. I could give a gift to a man listening in today to seek out that help if he's feeling that he's not worthy of being here, or he has suicidal intentions. And that's the best feeling in the world. And like I'm the healthiest, happiest I've ever been. And I'm a true believer now that, I spent years trying to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. If I lose weight, I'll be happy. If I lose weight, I'll be happy.
Yeah,
No,
I've been
no,
there.
no. I was so wrong, like so wrong. Like I lost the weight when my mind was healthy and happy. I lost the weight when I went and seen the right doctors about my gynae issues. I grew addicted to exercising when I learned and felt what it did for my mind. Um, it's just endless. It's honestly endless, the learning and the growing, and the teaching and giving that gift to someone else. And that's why I do what I do and speak so openly about all those topics that not a lot of people speak about.
I love that because you can actually hear it in your voice. Like, it's not for attention, like some people would say. It is that genuine, you care and you want to help people, and you are helping people by speaking and telling your story.
Yeah, it is like the people that don't see why you're doing it or think that you're doing it for attention are the people that probably haven't put enough work into themselves to understand it. I'm a crazy person for quotes and reels on self-healing and growing. And Mel Gibbons, I don't know if of course you follow her. Everyone follows Mel Gibbons, but
I probably
she put
don't.
up
I
she,
follow
oh,
no one.
go on Instagram. She's amazing. Like she put up something yesterday, and she was talking about how we interact and how we respond to people. And it makes so much sense. And I relate it so much. Not everyone has done the work you've done. So, like when you go out into the world and you expect people to understand why you operate and do the things you do, and if you live off of, oh, I should do it this way because that's what the world tells you to do. I'm sorry, who wrote the world's book of this is how it's supposed to be? It's not, it's not, it's not, it's not. But sorry, I went off track. She was talking about like how the unhealed people will never understand why the healed people do and say and speak and operate how they do. And it makes so much sense because the girl I was before never understood a lot of things about the world, a lot of things about myself, a lot of things about my mind, how I operate, why I eat. But the woman now who has spent years in talk therapy and years healing from traumas that I never put on myself, now understands that everyone is able and allowed to operate and think how they can. And it's about how you allow that into your world. So, probably going back to the very first question you asked me, I can talk so freely and openly about these things because I have healed those things inside me. And other people's opinions do not faze me or change my mind in how I want to live my life. I'm 36 years of age and I have my nose pierced, and I've always wanted it and I
I'm
never
a
did
nose
it.
pierced as well.
I was scared of people's opinions that I was a mom and I shouldn't have my nose pierced. I have tattoos. I, I go to festivals now and I talk openly, and I have found my people that understand me and love me for who I am. So I'm living my best life unapologetically.
I absolutely love that. And I hope you keep doing that. And I think you will as well, to be fair. I can't see a change now.
Yeah, look, I can't. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully, I've no hormones left in my body to send me the other way. So hopefully not. So I just, Christine, I just chose to live my best life. And when I did that, I grew and grew and grew, and I'm now in a career that I love more than anything. I raise my kids how I want to. I I just genuinely get up every morning and I'm happy to exist. And not a lot of people in this world, unfortunately, can say that these days.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think anyone who is listening to this should take a lot of value from this as well and everything you've said, and hopefully they can work along the line to healing. Because I suppose a lot of people don't realize like you don't have to have gone through the amount you've gotten through to still need to heal.
Oh my God. That was an amazing point. Like, I always say that everyone's problems are as big to them.
Mm.
Like, people always look at me and they always like, oh my God, how are you standing here? And I'm like, no, like, you could have been in a car accident that absolutely gave you massive anxiety, made you scared to get in a car, made you scared of the world. You might have had a friend that mistreated you, a boyfriend that broke your heart. There is always something from your childhood, something that happened to you in school. And those things need healing. Those things need addressing. And I always say to people, like, how you know you need to be healed is if there's things cropping up in your life or your behaviors that you know are not good for you and you know aren't serving you or making you the best version of yourself or making you perform at the best that you know you can. That's when you know you should do some soul searching. That's when you know, and people always talk about talk therapy. Oh, why would I go in and talk to a stranger about my things? Why would you do that? Like, what's that going to do? Oh my God, I love my therapist. I love her. Like, and she knows it. She knows it. Because you grow a bond with that person, and understanding, and you have a safe place where you can talk about things that you are so ashamed of. Like, most people don't realize they're living with massive shame, massive guilt. It might have been put on them by other people. It might be you're a people pleaser and you're just constantly living in that state. People are walking around living in fight or flight mode. Um, and therapy isn't just going in talking about your problems, it's working through them. It's figuring out, okay, but why am I insecure about that?
Mm.
Or why am I not as confident in myself? Why do I want to wear that dress? But when I put it on and look at it, all these thoughts are in my head about what other people will think. That stuff is put onto you bit by bit by bit by bit throughout your life. And until you go into a therapist's office and peel back, as I call it, the onion, layer by layer by layer, until you get down to the core of what you were. That's what it's all about. That's what therapy is about. Like, we're brought into this world, these tiny innocent babies with no beliefs, no shame, no guilt, no anxiety, no worries. Where do you think all of that comes from? Bit by bit. School, friends, parents, family, uh, you know, things you might have done, and another layer of shame and
Yeah.
guilt. I was about to say shit, but hey,
You go for it. The old Catholic Shane, throw that in there as well, being Irish.
yes, 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 100%. So, like, listen, the learning is endless, and along with researching and learning, talk therapy. Go. And like, if you don't like the person you're sitting with, that's okay.
Yeah.
Leave, but don't give up. Go back, because you will eventually find that person that works for you.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is it can't hurt if you're already in a terrible position. Why do you want to stay there? Would you not maybe try something that might make things a little bit easier, nicer, more enjoyable?
Yeah, for sure. Like, when I was a teenager, I remember going through really hard places, and I go to the doctor and they'd be like, okay, we'll try you on antidepressants there for 3 months. And when I look back now, I'm like, Jesus Christ, why didn't someone hand me a therapist? Now, I've been through different therapists, and I was lucky enough to find this lady in 2000, early 2017. And I'm still with her. I walked out of her office on Wednesday. Um, I will always go because it makes me strong. It keeps that strength there. And I was lucky enough to find the person that I clicked with and I felt comfortable enough opening up with. And it takes a lot of bravery. I never got that either. It takes a lot of bravery to go in and make that commitment and sit and go through all those horrible feelings. Why do you think people constantly say, talk, openly talk about
Yeah.
these things? Because that's what it does. When you openly talk, it heals you a little bit, little by little by little. Um, so yeah, I'm big with the talk therapy.
No, I love it. I think it's underutilized. Something I need to get to at some point, but I do believe it's something that's everyone should probably do a little bit of at some point, even if it's little maintenance. They don't have to be every week, but it's for
That's it.
everyone. Like,
I'm just like highly addicted.
oh yeah, that's okay.
I am. I do. I love it. And like, obviously, I have a stressful life. I have a stressful career. I've got two kids, one with CF. And that's just me making sure that I'm showing up as the best version as a mother, as, a radio presenter, um, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend. That's me making sure that I am the happiest that I could be while doing all these things.
But yeah, look, as well, there's worse things to be addicted to.
Oh my God, that's the
It's
best
probably one
thing.
of the few healthy things you can be addicted to.
Yeah, and it really, really is.
Um, Thank you for sharing all that. I think that is pretty much everything I have to ask you. But I do have one question I always ask my guests at the end, and that is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow, that's a good one. Okay, let me think, because I don't want to just answer off the top of my head. The
I normally
best.
get this reaction when I ask it.
Okay, good. So I'm not the only one.
Everyone's
Okay,
like, oh,
yeah, the best piece of advice I was ever given. God, there's a few, but I suppose be unapologetically uniquely you. And I'm sorry, I know this is two,
nope, you're
but
okay.
do the work. Do the work on you. Keep every day, do your non-negotiables. And if you do your non-negotiables, and what I mean by that is find the thing you love to do and do it every day. Actually, that's my piece of advice.
Yeah,
Find the thing you love to do and do it every day. And if you do that, everything else falls into place. So for me, I found exercise, and exercise for me is my non-negotiable. So when things get crap and when my head gets too stressed, I'm like, back to the non-negotiable. The non-negotiable is doing the one thing I love every day, and everything else falls into place. So yeah, that would be my best piece of advice that I ever got, is to find that one thing or two, because I do love to radio present as well. So find that thing or things that you love to do and make sure you do it every day.
I love that. That is a really, really good piece of advice. So I want to say thank you for joining us today, Katie. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, so I am randomly, I need to change all my handles across social media. So over on Facebook, I'm just Katie Sheehan. My page is on public. And over on Instagram, I'm Katie Sheehan 87. And I don't really use Twitter, but she's there, Katie Sheehan. And yeah, you can catch me on Spin Out West. I am the weekend presenter, so you can catch me on my talk show 10 to 12 on a Saturday and 9 to 12 on a Sunday.
Deadly. I love that. And as ever, guys, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So I have this handle issue a little bit as well. So I've strong in the saddle underscore on Instagram. It's strong in the saddle without the underscore on TikTok. I do have another Instagram. I'm not really using it much anymore. It's Chrissy H Fitness. And then my website is www.chrissyhawkins.com. So I just want to say thanks again for joining us today.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.